Welcome to Shortcuts to Mastery. I'm your host, Maria Henning, and in my universe, life is for growth and time is for bending. So hop in, my friend, buckle up, and let's get into it. Hello, welcome back to Shortcuts to Mastery. I am stoked that you're here. This is a super fun episode for me, super special episode for me, because I have the Mary Kate to my Ashley, the human design to my Gene Keys, one of my best friends of all time, and one of my huge inspirations in this industry, my bestie, Katie Irvine of Sort of Spiritual, on this episode today. So I got to interview her on so many things. If you've been following me for a while, you also might have been following Katie for a while. You might be following both of us for a while and might know and have followed our adventures together and all the countries we've traveled to together and all the things that we've seen together, but you may have never actually sat in on a conversation between us before. So it's also really cool because this is my first video interview on my own podcast. So you're going to get to see the full video interaction between both of us. And I got to interview Katie on a lot of things. I sort of mentioned in the episode that we don't typically talk about human design. I'm sure we do more than I think that we do, but this was a super fun interview because I just got to go through the full story in like one go. So I got to ask Katie all about how she got into human design, her discovery story of it, which is a really cool and interesting story, what keeps her there, all about her program HD School, which is open right now until like in this month, June 2024, if you're watching with us live, which has over 400 students in it, and it's freaking amazing. And I'm a student of that program and it absolutely rocks. We talked about so many, it was actually quite a long interview. So without any further ado, let's actually get into it and come in and join me on a conversation with one of my best friends and a human design teacher that I really respect and that I learned so much from, my bestie, Katie Irvine. Hey, welcome to a super special episode of Shortcuts to Mastery. I'm so stoked because I have one of my best friends of all time here, Katie Irvine, on this podcast, and we're going to talk all the things. Yay. So, we have a lot of shared audience. We have a little group that sort of follows us both and knows us. But for my audience that doesn't know you, tell us really quick just where you're from and what you do, and then we'll get into all the cosmic profiling things and how we met and all of that.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Canadian. I'm currently living in Bali, but maybe moving to London in like a week or two. We'll see. And I teach human design. You can find me at Sort of Spiritual. So I run a program called HD School where I teach human design and some other things. And yeah, that's what I do.
Hell yes. And it's really been a lot of fun. I think at least I've gotten this reflection from people that we've met sort of in the wild that like you are the human design girl and I'm like the Gene Keys girl or whatever. And I think it's cute. I think it's fun. I really like it. So anyway, I love that.
Ashley. There's like the pink twin and like the blue twin. It's like the Gene Keys twin and the human design twin.
Literally. I think I sent you that meme that was like human design and Gene Keys. It was like, are you friends? And Gene Keys is like, yes. And human design's like, no. I feel like that is a perfect, we are friends, but perfect interpretation of like the two systems. But yes, I'm the blue twin or the pink twin or whatever color Gene Keys is. Yay, I love this. So we've known each other for a long time. We've both been dabbling in these systems for a long time. I talk about my human design all the time in my podcast and whatnot, but I ended up going way over to the Gene Keys. I'm curious, like, first of all, give us your human design cosmic profile and like astrology and stuff. But like, what about human design keeps you like excited about it, I guess?
Yeah. Okay. So starting off with my profile stuff, I'm a 2/4 emotional manifestor. If you're really into it, I have the 1222 channel and the 4426. So that's me. And my astrology, I am Gemini everything. No, Gemini sun, Virgo rising, Aries moon, but I have also Gemini with what are my Gemini placements? Mercury, Venus, MC, Chiron. Yeah, so lots of air up in here. And do you want me to say anything about my Gene Keys? I feel like you know mine better than I do.
Gene Keys, yeah, we can talk about it. So conscious sun and gate 45 2. So that's I love that about our conversations. We get to talk about the two a lot because I'm a two also there and like the conscious sun and earth. purpose 47-4, which I think makes a lot of sense for you and like the work that you're doing. And then your vocation is a 38-3, we can definitely talk about. So Gate of the Fighter, line 3 of application. Katie and I both share the same vocation line. So we both approach these systems in the interest of like, how do we apply them? So then yes, that we can just do life's work, purpose, vocation for now, and then we can get more into it as we go along. But yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, what
but in terms of
go for
what
it.
kept me with design is I was very much searching for something, anything, please God, to tell me who I am and what I'm here to do. And I was just on this journey for so long because I remember in my 20s just feeling like I don't know. Like, I don't know what I'm here to do. I don't think I really have a purpose. Everything feels kind of meaningless. I don't really like myself. I don't feel confident. And it's like, I just felt really lost all the time. And I was really into personal development and just like trying to figure out something. And I knew a little bit about astrology at the time, but it just, I don't know, never really hooked me in until recently. I've been getting a lot more into astrology, but yeah, about almost 7 years ago now, I was at a retreat, I guess, that my boss at the time was hosting, and someone there did human design. And there was just something about it. Like, she was kind enough to share a little bit about me being a manifestor. I was the only manifestor in the room. And there was just something that was like, this feels nothing like me and everything like me at the same time. And it just felt like
Yeah,
it spoke like inner truth of me that I hadn't really experienced and I was living so out of alignment with. And it was like, I just have to learn more about this. Like, I just kept getting pulled back. And at the time I, had no money and no resources for a lot of things. And so what that looked like was just continually pulling the same sort of two human design books out of the library because it was the only books that the Toronto Library had at the time on human design, and trying to figure it out and Googling everything. And like 7 years ago, it was very different than it is now. Like, you could barely find anything on human design on the internet 7 years ago,
yeah,
but it kept kind of pulling me in. And I just feel like I'm also interested in the gene keys and like astrology, like I said, and going down these different rabbit holes. But I don't know, human design just keeps pulling me back. And I just, not pulling me back, but pulling me in and pulling me deeper because it just feels like there's more and more to discover. And like every time as I'm teaching human design and when I'm doing readings for students and things like that, I just am constantly learning more about myself and more about others. And it's like, oh yeah, I forgot about this, or I didn't see like this aspect like this before. And yeah, I don't know, just
yeah.
ties me in.
I have so many questions. First of all, I think about human design, studying it is like getting a PhD. Like, it's so much information, like it's so much research. There's so many, like, because you're saying like we forget about certain things, like it's bananas, like it's a crazy system, which I love. But okay, one random small question. Were you ever into like personality tests or like Enneagram or Myers-Briggs or anything like that?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
But my challenge, so I remember actually I took some HR class. I have a minor in HR randomly. I have a business degree, but I have a minor in HR. And there was
Love.
this one class we did. I don't even remember what the topic of it was, but I remember that part of the assignment was doing our Myers-Briggs and having two other people in our life do our Myers-Briggs for us. So
Oh
we had to
wow.
sort them about like what they thought we were. I think I'm like, oh God, I think I'm an INFJ, but I feel like it changes all the time, which is the thing
Yes.
that's frustrating for me because that was my issue always with personality tests that I was always going into, like the Enneagram. And like, no shade to any of these. I believe everyone can get value from whatever they resonate with.
Hmm.
But I feel like the systems where you're answering all these questions really depend on you having a high level of self-awareness and you being honest, because it's like, yeah, I would love to believe that I'm going to be on time for things, like in
Yeah.
my like wanting, what I mean? It's like I would love to believe a lot of things about myself that just aren't actually the truth. um and I remember doing this other assessment called the DISC assessment when I was working in like my
Yeah.
corporate hotel life. And that was the first one. The questions they ask you are unhinged. Like, I don't remember what they were. How are you determining anything from this? And then they give you
Yeah.
this report and you're like, what? Wow, this is actually really accurate, which was kind of
Mm.
hilarious at the time because my husband and I ex-husband now, worked for the same company and our profiles were basically completely incompatible. And I was like, not wrong,
Oh my God.
not wrong.
Just a casual sign, one of the
I am
many.
foreshadowing
Yeah.
the
Literally. I feel like DISC is very corporate, like the DISC
Oh,
assessment.
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Either that or it's like the Tony Robbins people are like trying to scam you out of $3,000. And they're like, but if you get a disc, which has happened to me, that was like one of the worst experiences ever. But
Uh,
yes.
Yeah, like I think, I think they all have their value, but one of the things that I just love so much about human design and gene keys and astrology is that like if you know your birth time, it just is what it is. Like
Yeah.
there's no arguing with it. And when I was first doing readings, that was something I was really afraid of because I thought human design really resonated for me, but I was like, oh my God, like what if it doesn't resonate with these people? What if they don't like it? What if it doesn't make sense to them? And in the hundreds of readings I've done over the past 7 years, maybe not 7 years, maybe 5 years, because I think I just started doing readings a year and a half, 2 years in. Um, Two people told me that it didn't resonate with them. And both of those people within a month came back and was like, oh my God, my birth time was wrong. My mom always said it was like 9:41 and I thought it was PM, but it was AM. And it like changed it
Yeah.
significantly to the point that it resonated with them now. And so it's kind of like, okay, I don't know, there's something to this.
That's what I keep finding because it's like maybe people haven't done. I mean, I don't engage with anybody who's like trying to fight me against human design, but I can think of like maybe folks that want some sort of you know, study funded or something around this. But I have so much anecdotal evidence of this working. Like I have so much evidence of moments like that of people like being totally mind blown and you that like no other system has ever seen me in this way. Like there's just I find that the truth just like resonates even if we don't do some sort of
Yeah.
like, scientific study on it. Okay, wait, that was my other question. Is this your seventh year in human design? Oh my
Ah,
gosh.
I
Okay,
know.
really quick for those that don't know, Katie's gonna explain the, the 7 year cycle, the 7 year importance. I mean, I have some thoughts on it, but I feel like this is a concept that comes primarily actually from human design, like the deconditioning 7 year thing. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the basic idea is just that, and I actually had a conversation with ChatGPT about this recently, and it's not entirely true, but
Just
this
you and
idea,
ChatGPT having a chat. Love it.
just having a little talk, a little chat. But the idea being that the majority of the cells in your body turn over in a 7 year period.
Right.
So it's not actually true that every single cell does, but the majority of them, like you're basically a new human from who you were every 7 years. And so this idea with human design is that when you start experimenting with your design and living with your strategy and authority, those kind of being like the main pieces that they're referring to with this, like within halfway, so like 3.5 years in, there's like a significant amount of deconditioning that's been done. But once you reach the 7 year mark, it's kind of like you're not that you're a new human, but you really have a different capacity than you had before in terms of your alignment, because it's like the cells and the energy and the frequency that's in your body. Like, don't get me started on this frequency talk right now. Okay. But it's like you're energetically a much more aligned human, let's say. And so it's like
Yeah.
everything just kind of a little bit differently for you. And I would, my life now compared to what it was 7 years ago, like it's unrecognizable. So
Yeah,
yeah.
well, let's talk about that. I was going to talk about a couple. There's like so many places that we're going to take this. You guys are getting an insight, just so you know. We'll tell the story of how we met, but we've basically been voice noting every day for 3 years. And this is like, you're getting sort of a peek into our conversations. They get really long and really fun and really in depth, and they get all over the place. So, okay, so you're an unrecognizable person, the 7 year cycle. I want to point out too, for my astrologers listening to this, obviously Saturn cycles, right? Saturn every 7 years does a square, an opposition, a square, and then a return. So 7 year cycles are important. There are gene keys that talk about the 7 year cycle. 42 is like one of the main ones that really talks about the 7 year cycle. So it's not only like human design specific, it's just that human design sort of adds this, in my experience, sort of adds on this, emphasizes this point that after 7 years, no, like it's like no part of you has like been left untouched by the genetic experience of living out your design. And these are systems that when you engage with them, they do change you on a genetic level, at least from a gene keys perspective. That's 100% how it feels. And I know that human design talks about that as well. So a little bit of, just wanted to emphasize that. But okay, you're an unrecognizable person. You discovered human design 7 years ago, which is amazing, at this conference in Paris, right? Did you say, I don't know
Yeah.
if you said it on this. Yeah,
Yeah.
Paris, so amazing. Heard about being a manifestor, only manifestor, because you guys are only 9% of the population. So one of the rarer types. And now completely unrecognizable. Okay. What were some of the milestones in between? Because I think people listening to this might be interested in, like, how can you know that things are different? How can you know? I mean, you're going to know that you're unrecognizable for sure, but like, what were some of the milestones? And I guess with that, like, what were some of the pieces of human design that like drew you in? I know you like really loved the centers at the beginning. Like, what was it about that was interesting? How did that change things? So tell us the story of the last 7 years.
Wow, how much time do you have?
Just a casual ask.
So I think, like, first of all, when I found human design, I was working as a virtual assistant for this coach. And I had just left my hotel job. I was so miserable working in hotels. I was married. I was in a really unfortunate marriage. I was really unhappy in it. And I felt so trapped. And literally 2 weeks after finding human design, I left my husband, like, not because of human design, but it was like, I feel like a little bit was because this feeling of being a manifestor and this feeling that I had this capability of something so much more, and how I was like such a people pleaser and I was doing everything that you were supposed to do and everything that everyone else wanted me to do. And yeah, so leaving my husband, so getting out of a horrendous marriage basically and going on this like wild journey of self-discovery and relationships that I'm still on and having a lot of fun with.
But I feel, sorry to interject, but I feel like it's so, that is very true about like just discovering it and like immediately making like a radical shift. I feel like I had that experience. Like, it wasn't that not when I first discovered it did I do something different, but when I first actually heard what a manifesting generator was, I was like, that was the last straw that for me was like, oh, I need to start my own business. Like, it was like I was so like, oh, back and forth, like this, that, the other. I had known a little bit about human design, but I knew of the system, but knew nothing about it. And then I heard Jenna Zoe talk on a podcast about manifesting generators for 5 minutes, and I was like, holy fuck, I need to like fully do my own business. So I feel like that's not a very, or I don't know, that feels very fated. It's like you receive this sort of thing, it touches you in a certain way. So anyway, sorry to interject, but I don't think it's crazy that was like the timeline.
Well, I mean, it was also like right about to go into my Saturn return, so my life was about to just be leveled. So yeah, I left my husband, which we were living in California at the time. So I also moved back to Toronto. I left that job as a virtual assistant. Maybe 6 months later, I took another job, like while I was all like going into this human design stuff. And so I would say one of the first pieces was, at the time, they really spoke about manifestors informing. And I was like, informing being what? What am I informing?
Yeah.
And so the more I dug into it, the more I started to understand it was about, for manifestors, how I see it is it's following your urges. Like, that's our actual strategy. And then informing is like the secondary piece, but it's like you need to receive and follow the urge and then inform.
Yeah.
And so that was a big piece of like understanding, because I had always like, there's such a big difference for me between urges that I receive versus like just ideas. And so distinguishing those, that was something. But I would say one of the first big pieces was the whole emotional authority thing, because I had struggled previously in my life with depression. I had been like, when I was, I don't know, 13 or something, I was diagnosed as being bipolar. And it was such a surreal moment, because it's like I had been struggling with stuff. I was in my pediatrician's office. He pulled out a questionnaire, asked me like 10 questions, and diagnosed me as being bipolar. And it's like, really?
Yeah.
I look back at that now and I'm like, that's so wild. And it's like, I'm actually just a 1222 individual emotional wave. Like, do you not know anything about human design?
It's giving
But
uneducated.
yeah, right. But listen, no, whatever.
Yeah.
Let's just move on.
Yeah.
But what that really helped me to understand was like that I just have extreme highs and extreme lows for absolutely no reason. And like, I don't want to go into it too much. I have a whole masterclass on the emotional solar plexus that includes all this stuff, but the individual emotional wave. So if you have the 1222 or the 3955, you're just going to sometimes be super high in your wave. And sometimes you're going to wake up being like slammed to the bottom of the ocean for no reason. And what I found is that like the more I tried to resist the lows, the longer they stayed, to the point that like they could stay for months or years if I was resisting those feelings. And so the
Yeah.
emotional authority piece of like really understanding that channel and understanding the emotional authority, like I could see, so emotional authority people, if anyone doesn't know, you're not designed to make spontaneous decisions. Like every decision I had ever made was spontaneous, basically, because it's like
Mm,
you get high on this emotional wave and it feels good and you're like, yeah, let's do it. But to me, it's like you're basically drunk or high or something. Like you are incapacitated. You are not able to make clear decisions. And it's like I think about that with meeting my husband, with moving to Korea. I used to live in Korea, by the way. With moving to Korea, with getting engaged, with like all of these job things. I didn't feel like anything was something I made from a clear emotional place because I didn't understand how to be clear emotionally, you know, because I wasn't
yeah.
feeling my feelings. And so it was just all these like crazy spontaneous decisions. So understanding my emotional authority was really helpful. Yeah, getting into the centers, that was so helpful. Like you need to understand your undefined centers more so than your defined centers, because your undefined
Mm,
centers will ruin your life. They will 100%, they will, because they are the things that you think like you mistakenly use to guide your life, where it's like you think you need these things. Like for me, let's just give an example for my undefined ajna. It's like if I let that guide my life, I think I need to be certain about things when I am never going to be certain about things, you know, not
yeah.
fully, not the way that some people are going to be. And so if I let that guide my life, it's like that's going to look like me doing endless certifications, doing everything to try to prove myself, not taking any action until I'm completely certain, and I'm never going to be certain. And then it's like you're just adopting some weird belief system that doesn't actually fit you because you want certainty. And all of a sudden you're like, I don't know, 10 years into some random cult or something because they provide you certainty. And it's like just not it. And same thing with, you know, my undefined root center, let's say, where it's like all of this pressure to just get things done. It's like it just leads you to burnout. It's not the truth. So,
Yeah.
anyways, like understanding your centers, understanding your motors. Oh, I love it all. But I feel like it like that was another really big piece of like, wow, these undefined centers, which is where we experience a lot of our conditioning, just take us completely off track. And it's like they're so loud and they're so noticeable. And it's like if we don't know better, we let those things run our lives. Um, then the gates, my love affair with the gates, they're my favorite part of human design.
So good.
Um, really understanding those and spending so much time with those and spending so much time doing readings and talking to people about their gates and understanding them. And it's like, I just feel like the gates, I look at gates actually in a way somewhat similarly to Gene Keys, but also not. But the way that I look at gates is kind of like having an overview of what the energy is, then seeing the challenges in the gates and the high expression of the gates. So kind of like how Gene Keys does it, but obviously Gene Keys looks at it differently with like the 3 different levels and all the different, you know, structures. Um, but I just feel like it's so helpful because when you look at that energy, you can clearly see in your design, in your gates, oh, I'm experiencing these challenges. So this is an area that I can put work into, because generally when we're looking at human design and talking about deconditioning, it's just like follow your strategy and authority, which great, don't get me wrong. But I really like having the map that I kind of see it as with the gates of like, oh, I'm really struggling with this. So you know, in my design, I have the gate 10, the gate of self-love in both of my Saturns and both of my Uranus placements. So it's a little tricky for me. Yay, we love that. Um,
Yeah.
the universe was just like, you are going to struggle with loving yourself. And I did. But now it's
Right.
like I'm on the other side of it and I get it. And it's like, whenever, if I slip back into that kind of low energy in that place, it's like, oh, this is just my gate 10. Like, it's okay. What do I know to do to like rise to the higher expression of it instead of just feeling like trapped and all that? So understanding the gates was a really big part of it. And then I would say again, like, because I feel like you just keep going in circles with it. It's like, again, going back to understanding my strategy and authority of like the urge, which was me starting HD school. So Maria had a really good laugh at this because I used to do coaching and she like thinks it's hilarious because she just doesn't see me as someone capable of coaching, which she's not wrong. She's not wrong. There's a reason I don't do it anymore. Because
Not
basically
like
I just
not like incapable because you're like incompetent, just like incapable because it doesn't mesh with like your authentic desire and the of how you would want to experience life. Yeah, imagining you doing a coaching session just always gives me a tickle. But yes, sorry to
And
interrupt.
well, that was my, so because I was so into personal development, I actually I've done 2 coaching certifications, but the first one that I did was how I ended up getting connected to the VA or the VA job, which was how I found human design, whatever. But I had done 2 coaching certifications and I was trying to start a business and it was just really not working for me. And I just had this like realization one day, and I had some coaching clients. So it's not like I didn't ever start the business. It just wasn't enough for me to really live off of. And then, 2020 happened. And January 2020 is when I started teaching human design classes. And my coaching business was doing fairly well. But then, yeah, the whole, March 2020 happened. And I just had after I slept. So I was really burnt out. And I slept for the first like 6 weeks of the lockdown, like
Wow.
10-11 hours a day. I just slept. And I was working with my coaching clients, but other than that, I honestly just slept. And then one morning I woke up and it was like June and I was in the park and I just had such a strong urge to create this thing called HD school. And I was like, no, I can't do this. Like, I'm not Karen Curry Parker. I'm not whatever. No one wants to learn from me. And I happened to be there with a friend that day. And she was like, well, I would want to learn from you. Like, I would rather learn from you than this other random person. She doesn't know. No shade to Karen. We love her. Bow down.
Yeah. Love Karen.
But yeah. But it was just like that was the first like really strong urge that like took my life in a different direction in terms of creating HD school, because like I said, it was like all these moments, but then it just like keeps coming back and like keeps going back around as you go like deeper in this spiral or upwards in this spiral, however you want to look at it.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, so many things. First of all, just for those of you listening, we like never talk about human design in our friendship. I mean, we like sort of do, but I think this is the most I've heard you talk about human design like ever in like a sit down. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like we sort of like sprinkle it here and there, but I'm just like, God damn, it's so fun to see you in like your passion about it, which is the line 2 sort of thing. And speaking of that, so okay, so line 2s, we're good at things. We don't know what we're good at. We need that external reflection. You having your friend reflect to you, like, hey, I'd actually would find your thing valuable, was like a key moment, for you. And that's such a line 2 experience. Yeah.
Well, and what was really interesting as well is after I had internally decided that I was going to do this HD school thing, I had previously published probably just one video on YouTube. I had this weird experience where I literally like blacked out and filmed a YouTube video and like came to as I was editing it. And I was like, what the fuck is this? It's still on my YouTube channel. It has like 100,000 views,
I was gonna
unfortunately.
say, but isn't that the 100K view video? Yeah.
The lighting is bad. I'm weird. The audio is bad. People email me complaining about the audio. And I'm like, what do you want me to do? The video is like 7 years old at this point. Like, anyway.
Oh my God. It's wild.
People are wild. But anyway, so I had this one YouTube video. I had been growing my audience on Instagram for a little while. And after I had received that urge and was like, okay, let's do this, I started receiving DMs from people being like, oh my God, the way you explain human design is so good. Like, I love learning from you. Like, and I just started getting all of these kind of like invitations in a way. I kind of joke that as a 2/4 manifestor, I'm like a fake manifestor because I think the 2/4 is a very like projector vibe profile. In the sense that the 2 gets called out.
Right.
And so it's like all of a sudden I was getting all of these comments, all of these DMs calling me out for how well I explain human design, which also like my Jupiter gate in human design is the gate 23, which is assimilation, which is basically like I eat human design and digest it for you and then share it in a way that's like easier for you to understand. Because I break it apart, I put it back together, I make it in a way that's easy to understand, which I also think is funny because when I was learning the gates and I saw that that was my gift, I was like, can I have a better one? This is so boring. Assimilation. And I was like, this is my entire business. Cool. Thanks.
Literally. Yes. Which in the gene keys, that's like your pearl, so that's like the sort of, the thing that everything else hinges on, essentially, like especially when it comes to career. So that makes a lot of sense. But yeah, no, that's very true about the 2, getting called out, getting those in the gene keys. It's more like we need that sort of reflection back of our unself-conscious nature. And I've had key moments in my business too of like with the compendium is a perfect example, like showing the compendium to a coach and being like, I built this for myself, how cool. And she was like, I would buy that. And I'm like, oh, you would buy that? Oh, that's crazy. And now the compendium exists. So like I had similar moments like that. But So many things to talk about. Um, I think with the Gates conversation that you love so much around using the challenges and then the higher expressions, I find that to be so Gate 38 vocation, to use the like Gene Key's language. Like the Gate 38 is like challenges, right? Shadow of struggle, gift of like perseverance, and then like city of honor. So it's like you're seeing it from like the struggle perspective, like what are you struggling with, and like the honorable perspective, and then you're applying it. So to go circle way back to like why human design is interesting to you, I wonder if you also had this experience, because this was my experience too, or this was my experience at least. Like astrology didn't hook me because I didn't understand how to apply it. Like I didn't understand how it could actually like show up in my life, and human design was so applicable. And then also was like the unchanging thing that we both like, because I didn't like that my Enneagram changed all the time as well. I was just like, I don't know what to do with this. I don't know how to apply it. So I didn't know how to apply human design, or rather astrology. I didn't know how to apply Enneagram, but human design, it was like, here's what you do. It was like, here's how you apply it, which feels so good to that line 3. I just want to experiment and just like fuck with it and see how it turns out. Yeah.
Yeah. And I love that about human design. And like, I think and again, I think I think in some ways, astrology is so much deeper than human design. Like, I think there's so much more nuance in astrology when you really, really get into it. But like, man,
Yeah.
it is something to get into. But it still is like, okay, but what do I do with this?
Yeah.
And that's what I like about human design, because it gives you this tangible thing of strategy and authority. And it's like, even like, I feel like the more I get into human design, I actually care even less about strategy. And it's like, for me, it's like the game is really like, if you do nothing else but understand your authority and how you're designed to make good decisions, things are going to be better for you. Even
Yeah.
if you like, I would recommend getting into your strategy as well. But even if you never do that, if you just understand how you're designed to make decisions, life is going to be a lot better for you,
Yeah.
And it's like so tangible, and it's so, I don't want to say easy, because it's not always easy, but in a way it is. Like it's very straightforward.
Yeah.
Um
It's simple. It's simple. Sometimes not easy, but at least simple. It's like this is like what you're looking at. And especially if you understand the channels, like the channel that defines your authority, if you have a defined center and an authority, because obviously reflectors don't, but like that helps you like with the 1222. So like one of the gifts that I've gotten so strongly from our friendship is like how amazing you are at like feeling your feelings now and like transmuting them. And I know that that was like an initiation that you had to go through, through understanding your 1222. And I've been the recipient of many fun voice notes about highs from your emotional highs. Should we tell some of those stories?
Go for it. Yeah.
I mean, the
Which
main the main most fun one, which is fun because okay, so for if anyone you guys don't know, it's Katie's birthday week, which is so fun. And then like she was saying, she may move to London soon. Well, I think that's pretty much happening, right? I mean, that's pretty
I
much
think it's happening, but I don't know. Last night I was like, maybe fuck this all and I just stay in Bali for like the rest of the summer.
okay, great. So here's a perfect example of what it's like to be friends with a 1222 manifestor. Just like you never know what's going on. It's really fun. But my favorite experience of your emotional high was last year when you were in Europe. Were you in London last year? Am I crazy? Did you went to
No,
London for a
so
second?
this
No,
I went to London last November, but this specific
November.
example, I had just arrived in Seville. So I
Yes.
had gone from Bali to Kuala Lumpur to Dubai to Turkey. I went a bunch of places in Turkey. Then I went to Barcelona, and when I to see our friend Ale. And once I got to Barcelona with Ale, we were like, it is way too freaking hot and nowhere here has air conditioning. We're gonna die. Let's go to Seville, which was even hotter, but places had air. And so got
Important.
to and this guy that I had been dating, I don't know, did an ayahuasca journey and realized that I wasn't his soulmate and broke up with me. And um then I just went on this like, I mean, listen, I was upset about it and I cried about it, but then I had this like wild emotional high of like, I can do anything and go anywhere. And so I
Yes.
was like messaging Maria, like, I'm going to enroll at the Cordon Bleu in Madrid so I can learn to speak Spanish and become a chef at the same time. And then I'm going to go to Croatia and learn how to sail. And then I'm going to enroll in fashion design school in Milan. And then I'm going to go to London and take all these short courses on like abstract painting and I don't know, lingerie construction and costume design. And then I was like, oh,
Gosh.
wait, I have a business that I need to run.
Yeah. Sounds
And
like maybe I don't want to do all of this stuff right now, all at the same time. But
I do, but you fair, maybe not at the same time.
Yeah, all the things, just maybe not all at the exact same time. I just
Yeah. And like, go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say, because I feel like we both do that. And we're like so excited about all these things. I'm like, I want to do this and that. And at least for me, like I as an MG, like I'm just like all these things and then I just can't. So anyway, that was all that I was gonna say.
Yeah. And then I, every like 5 minutes was messaging Maria with this entirely new life plan. And it's like at this point, I can just enjoy the high of like knowing we're probably not going to take action on any of these things. And maybe we will, but now is not the time.
Yeah.
Now is the time to just let it express, to have fun with it. And this is why it's like so helpful to have friends like Maria who understand this stuff, who can just be there and like witness and kind of like laugh along with me instead of like, oh, well, what about this? And like, did you think about that? And blah, 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 and like, this isn't realistic. And blah, blah, like, this is coming out of, it's just like,
Oh my
it's not,
God.
just
Could
everyone
you
calm down.
imagine? Yeah, that would
No.
be awful. No. That would be terrible. I think about that a lot with like, my family relationships where I'm like, if you just knew that I was a Scorpio moon, you would like get why I'm being this way. Like you could just like cut me a bit of slack. Like this, I'm trying my best with what I received, So yeah, no, I find that so interesting. But truly it's like, you mentioned so many things that like have made you this unrecognizable person is what I was going to say, but just that's not what I want to say, but like just all these things that are now unrecognizable, all these sort of transformations throughout the journey of this. And I don't know, it's not necessary to compare, but to compare it with something like Enneagram or Myers-Briggs, it's like you're not going to have that like genetic fundamental transformation, of your being, of your system with those systems. Like this is a completely different animal that we're dealing with. And I guess with that, feel free to respond to that, but also like, how would you even define human design? How do you like how do you see human design? I've never asked you this. I'm so curious.
Yeah, it's funny. One of my students was asking me about this the other day, and I generally just say that human design is a system of self-awareness. Like it's something that helps you to understand yourself. It helps you to understand how you operate, how you take
Yeah.
action. And I feel like that's enough. And if that intrigues someone to go further into the rabbit hole, then like they can discover what human design really is for them. Because I think when you really start getting into it and trying to explain it and trying to like understand what like or trying to convey the magnitude of it, it just kind of gets lost. And I feel like it's some like to me, human design is an experience. It's an experiment, it's an experience. And so it's like you can't really ever tell somebody what it is until they decide to go through it. So it's like you're either initiated into it or you're not. And if you're not, you're not. And that's fine. But if you are, it's an experience. And I feel like in a way, no one can really, really describe it in a way that's going to do it justice of like what the potential is inside.
I love that. I think that's the best way that I've probably heard it described. Like you're right. Like it is something that either finds you in some way. Like I don't know. I think it finds you. I don't know. I'm always shocked when I see like a very young person because I'm like, how you must have been doing a bunch of stuff for a while to find this. Because like, or at least I mean, obviously you and I are part of the wave that is having it become more widespread and like easily accessible. But to your point, like 7 years ago, you could not find anything about human design on the internet or anywhere. But I don't know, like I feel like it really finds you and it's finds you after you've been sort of searching for a while, at least that's my, yeah. What do you think about that?
Yeah, like I said, I spent my whole 20s trying to figure out who I was and what was going on. And I was 29. I think I had just turned 29 when I found human design, or when it found me, really. Like I said, at the Ritz in Paris. What a lovely place to meet.
God, it's giving Jupiter and Taurus. We love it. Yes. Well, okay, I have one more question for you about this, and then maybe we can get into some other things. But one of the things that you mentioned was the distinguishing, or like how important it was to distinguish urges versus, I think, ideas or something is the other word that you use. But how do you experience your urges? Like, what is the some somatic experience of it, if it is somatic or mental? I don't know. Yeah, tell us about your urges. I'm curious.
For me, it feels like someone is telling me to do something. Like an urge feels clear, it feels direct, it feels like forceful in a way, but like forceful in the sense that it is direct, not that it's like pushing me, but it's something that stays And it doesn't stay around forever, because if I don't take action on the urge, it'll eventually kind of go away, like over time. But some urges stay for a really long time, but it's just there. It's present. It's clear. It's like sturdy in a way, where ideas feel very like floaty. Like I feel like ideas are like little butterflies kind of like going around, and it's like, ooh, could do this. Ooh, could do this. Ooh, could do this. Where an urge is just like,
Yeah.
this is what
Yeah.
this is what you're doing. And I mean, I don't know if I'm sure I've told you this before, but like one of the first urges I got for years was to do a headstand. Like
Yeah.
before I found human design, this was like the urge that was like the most clear for me for like years going into it, was to do a headstand. And I think it's funny now, because like when I go upside down, it's like I feel like I get all these downloads and all this stuff comes in. And so it's like, oh, maybe that's what they were trying to get me to do, to like get these downloads. For whatever reason, they come in better when I'm upside down. Also on airplanes, I feel like I get crazy downloads when I'm on airplanes, but not always. But like I get like a lot of like programs or master classes or something. It's like I get on an airplane and all of a sudden it's just like whoosh, like,
Yeah.
and I'm like phone, like trying to like capture it all, you know. But yeah, like an urge just feels like something that's clear that comes through, where, and it's like it feels like someone else is like just, I'm just recording what someone else is saying. Like it doesn't feel like it's me, but it's coming through me. Where it's like ideas just feel flighty. They feel kind of like, they don't feel solid. It's like maybe this, maybe that, maybe this, and I don't know. Like, yeah, that's the difference for me, like in terms of how I experience them.
I mean, I feel like that's a very clear difference. I mean, like something super direct and like dense is almost the word that I'm getting with an urge. It's like it's not gonna float away or something. Like it stays. To your
Mm.
point, I feel like that's a very clear way to distinguish it. So I'm curious if you're a manifestor listening to this, if you yeah, resonate with that. I guess, okay, this is a selfish question, but how would you distinguish urges for an MG? Do you even think that MGs get urges?
I think in a way it's a little like, yes, I think they do, but I think it's a little irrelevant because of the sacral center. Like the
Yeah.
sacral center is just so important that it's like, it, because the sacral center tells you everything you need to know of like, is this the right time? So it's like, even if you're getting an urge, it's like, because for me as an emotional manifestor, I get an urge and then I have to wait it out, right, to see if I have clarity about this thing, to see if it's like the right time, to see whatever. But if you have a sacral, and I mean, I understand obviously there's emotional manifesting generators, but it's like, what is your sacral responding to? Yes, like you. Because it's like, if something is a hell yes, then it's like, that's all you need to know. And if it's not a hell yes, that's all you need to know, you know?
Yeah.
And it's like, yes, you might need to see if it's still like a yes over time, but it's like, if you're not getting that like visceral pull, that expansion, that like whatever towards it, whether it's an internal urge that you're receiving or whether you're responding to something externally, because I think manifesting generators can play with like the internal responses a little bit more, which generally like I this is like an advanced human design thing. Like I think you really need to be clear with your sacral, because I think sacral beings, generators specifically, try so hard to manipulate the response,
Mm,
and they
yeah.
try so hard to, and I mean this with so much love, but I just think it's like one of like the catches of having a sacral is that like you have this energy, you want to do this stuff, and so you try to manipulate these situations of like, oh yeah, this was an urge and I'm responding to it, let's go do it now. And it's like,
Yeah.
is it, like, are you
Yeah.
sure? And because it's like, if you're not sure, like, and it's like, listen, I think about this all the time with myself, and I feel like this is a similar but different thing. I really struggle with telling the truth to myself about relationships, you know, and Maria knows this very well. She's basically in my relationships with me. She hears so much about them.
I'm like, I wonder if they know there's like a third girlfriend in here, or like a second girl. Who's the third? Anyway, the second.
um, third person in the relationship. Yeah. But it's, I feel like I just have a really hard time like distinguishing sometimes between fantasy and reality, and really wanting somebody to be different than they are, and just not being honest with myself that, hey, this isn't working, or this isn't right for me, or this relationship has expired, it's time to move on. I feel like I'm not good at being honest with myself about that. And I feel like generators are not good at being honest with themselves about what a response really is, because they, I, and like not, I don't want to make this like sweeping generalization, but I think especially at the beginning of their journey, they want that. I think it's a lack of trust, which I could say the exact same thing for me, you know, really giving yourself, I think for sacral beings, it's really giving yourself a time period and a chance to get to know your sacral, to really experiment with your sacral. And it's probably going to happen in waves of like, oh, I thought that was my sacral, but it's actually now I have a different level of clarity and I can see more that this really is. And that's okay. But it's just, yeah, having an awareness of not trying to manipulate sacral responses of like for ideas. It's like just let them be.
Yeah, no, I agree. Well, I think that we have all been conditioned to not be our design. I feel like
Yeah.
generators have been conditioned to be manifestors and like go be a go, or not even generators. Everyone else has been conditioned to be a manifestor, be a go-getter, initiate, whatever. All non-sacrals have been conditioned against their non-sacralness. It's like, why are you tired? Like, not even that non-sacrals are always tired, because that's like not a good stereotype, but to use like a very shitty stereotype, it's like you've just been conditioned in that way. And so whenever we get our human design, to your point, or any chart really, but to your point of you experiencing, listening, like hearing about human design for the first time, you get a bunch of validation right away. It's like 50% of it is like all this crazy validation, and then 50% of it is like all this conditioning being reflected back to you, and you're like, fuck, I'm not doing that, like I'm not doing that thing. And that was my experience of it. And I just had a conversation earlier today on another. I was being interviewed for a podcast, and she spoke. It's Makosi's podcast. It will come out soon, but she spoke about sort of getting like chart envy, and it's like you wish that you had a certain thing. Because I mentioned like my line 4 culture, and she was like, "Oh, I wish I had line 4s." Every once in a while I have a lot of line 1s, and it's like that's funny because you have. That is initially like a reaction. It's like, oh, I wish I was a manifestor and I could just initiate, or I wish I was a generator and I had sacral energy. So yeah, we've all been conditioned against it, including generators, have been conditioned against, listening to their sacral.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Or even, for us, like emotionally defined people have told us to be decisive. And then for decisive types like sacral authorities or splenic authorities, and maybe you can even say ego authorities are very decisive. They've been like told that they're too impulsive, and that
Yeah.
they need to like wait it out more or whatever. So even like your authority gets conditioned again. So which one is it, society? Do you want me to be decisive or not? Fucking make up your mind. Yeah, no, so interesting. I'm curious if you could distill maybe the biggest permission slip that your human design journey has given you so far, out of all of them, out of the many.
Out of the many. I think the biggest thing is that I don't have to do things that I hate. Like,
Yeah.
the
Mm.
things that are right for us are going to be in alignment. And it's like, I think that was like really like the big thing that came through before I started HD school, when I was like trying to do this coaching business and trying to follow this coach's advice of like how to market things. And it's like, you don't have to do things that you hate. You might have to do things that are like, a little bit tricky or not difficult, but it's like, as a general rule, how you live your life, it doesn't have to be doing things that you hate. It doesn't have to
Yeah.
be going to a job you hate. It doesn't have to be being in a relationship that's miserable. It's like you get to like be who you are. And it's like, oh, I think also, like, I know you asked for like one permission slip, but I think like really
That's
the
okay.
emotional well. It's like
Yeah.
of like, I'm designed to be emotional. I'm designed to be dramatic in a sense, of having these big feelings. And for the most part, I don't think I'm very dramatic in front of other people, but I feel very dramatically. And I
Mm-hmm.
used to, because like again, speaking with conditioning, it's like you're so conditioned growing up of like whether in the workplace it's like, oh, it's unprofessional to cry, or it's like as a kid it's like, stop crying, you're being so dramatic, blah 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 blah. But it's like, I have big feelings, and it's like these big feelings need to be expressed. um and it's like
Yeah.
so much of my like genius comes through there. And it's like when I don't allow that, it's like it literally, the way that I look at, especially if you're an emotional manifestor, the way that I look at the emotional channels is like, you are a fire hose. Or even if you're like if you have the 1222 or the 3635, it's like this is a fire hose of emotional energy. And if you think of the amount of energy it would take to try to keep the water in the fire hose,
Yeah.
not only is that the most exhausting job you could possibly have, you're going to fail at it. And then you're also losing out on that power of the fire hose. And I feel like
Yeah.
that was my entire life, was trying to keep the water in the fire hose. So not only was I failing at that, which was so like demoralizing, and I think created so many insecurities because I wasn't doing a good job at the one thing I was trying to do, because that's what society was teaching me to do. But I also lost out on all of this power, on all of this expression, on all of like who I am, basically. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. No, I love that. That's a very accurate description. I feel that very strongly for like at least my experience of emotional conditioning. I don't have that channel. Or I don't have any of
It
those
applies to
channels.
all of them, but I just think it's
Yeah.
extra. Like I think whenever
Yeah.
you have emotion, that applies, but I think it's just like extra potent for those two channels.
Yeah, of course. Well, because it comes out your throat. It needs to be expressed. It needs to be like heard. It needs to be felt. And that's what I'm saying. Like, to your point of like that's your genius flows through there. Like, I feel like that's like transformed me in like my life. Like your ability to sort of hold space for me. Like you guys should hear there's like 15-minute voice notes of us like sobbing about shit to each other. Like
Like fully.
literally. Yes, and it's so healing. It's so healing. It's so fucking nice. And I like for me, like I'm Capricorn and Scorpio and I'm like fucking daddy and like I'm fine and like I don't have
I'm
any
like,
feelings. Like,
cry.
yeah, and you're like, feel your feelings. And I'm like, me getting to Colombia and being like, I'm just gonna be sad by myself in a corner. And you're like,
Yeah.
what the fuck? Just share the sadness, like take up
No,
space.
we're
Yeah,
all here. Come cry with us. Please don't go
yeah,
cry and by yourself. Come cry
yeah.
publicly.
Yeah, yeah. I was like, I'll take some solo girl, like sad time. Yeah, it's been so thank you. I love you. It's been super healing. I so appreciate you.
You.
But truly it's like, like that and this is like a random sidebar, but to human design is not just a gift when it comes to like us then being business owners about it, like it touches all these other aspects of our life too, and it touches other people, which is like what I'm reflecting back to you now. It's like you being in alignment in your design and sort of like being, I feel like you're like radically committed to your design and like
Mm.
a lot of ways. Yeah, I really appreciate that about you. But you doing that like has like changed my life. You know what I mean? So anyway, all that to say for those listening, it's like it's not just about like we started businesses now and we like teach this because I feel like we get caught in that a lot. I don't know if you agree with me on this, but I feel like we get caught a little bit in that a lot. Like it's like that's the only as if that's the only benefit is like some entrepreneurial thing, which is it's not, even though it is a huge benefit and we're all in a bubble together following our dreams. So it makes sense, but like it's not the only fucking benefit, like there's like that's actually like a side, it's like a symptom of like all these other amazing things happening. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like I'm very grateful for like the freedom that I've created in terms of, but again, following my urge and creating a business and doing that. But not everyone's going to have that urge,
Yeah.
or whatever it is with their design in terms of what they want to create. But it's like I think of how differently I am in relationships because of it, and how much more myself I can be. And it's like how I'm just like so much more understanding of other people. I have so much more space for other people because it's like I can see why you have this. I can see why you're like this. I can see what you need. And it's like, I think
Yeah.
of this, that Ross says this, that like human design was really created for children, because it's like, if you can raise children to be in their power, and it's like, oh, it like makes me emotional sometimes, but it's like, I think of like the atrocities and stuff going on in our world right now. And I don't want to oversimplify it as if human design is going to solve everything. But if everyone was operating in alignment, no one would be bombing someone. If everyone
Yeah.
understood who they were, if they felt good about themselves, if they felt like they were in their power, if they felt like their possibility of who they are, if they understood who they are, if they understood other people, we wouldn't be doing the things that are happening, because it's like
Yes.
it just would happen. And so it's like, I understand it's not that easy, but it also is a step in that direction, where it's like the more we understand ourselves, the more compassion we have for people, the more we raise children or share with our family members, and not in like a weird, like, this is your human design, but the more that you are in alignment, the more your frequency naturally is shared with people, even if you never talk to them about human design. Like, this is not some weird culty, like you need to recruit 7 people or you're going to have bad luck, like,
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
care if you ever talk about human design to anybody, but it's like, if you resonate with it and if it changes your life and your experience experience of yourself, you are going to be a better human and other people are going to have a better experience just naturally. And it's like, it slowly is going to start to shift people, you know?
1 billion%. And I mean, it's not even about human design. It's just that human design would be a tool for everyone to know
Yeah.
themselves. It's not about human design, say, like literally saving the world. It's just like fucking knowing yourself like radically, loving
Yeah.
yourself radically, being yourself radically, and then having like radical space and compassion for others. Like human design is a tool for that, but there are other tools for that too. Like of
Absolutely.
course that would there would be zero of these things happening in the world for sure if that was the case. And yeah, to your point of like, you don't even ever need to speak human design to people. Like, I don't ever talk to my family about human design. Like, that's definitely not a conversation, yeah, that I'm ever having. And, you know, when the opportunity comes for us to have a conversation where we're, you know, where a reflection on something like, no, yeah, like, you know, I know you're really good at this. And it's like, I'm just reading their chart to them, but I'm not saying, you know, I'm talking about your conscious sun, but I'm like, no, I know this
Yeah.
thing is important to you. And they're like, yeah, you're right. You know, so I still get to sort of support people in their alignment, and reflect it back to them, but I have no stakes in anybody believing in this, and you know, thinking like literally zero stakes at all. I don't give a fuck, because there's plenty of the right people who are we're all speaking the same language. I don't need to convince a single person. They will be initiated into it or not. To your point, I feel like that's actually like the best. That's like such a perfect description of it, which makes so much sense too, coming from like a manifestor, like a human design coming from a manifestor, as well. Like you get initiated into it or you don't, but that doesn't mean that you can't still like just hold people in their alignment, or yeah, and you radically live your design, and that will like your aura will touch other people's auras, you know, in that way. Yeah, yeah. Well, okay. Where should we take this? So I I sort of want to tell the story of how we connected, because it has to do with can I actually, sorry, I can't hear you. Try again.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. Okay, cool. Because it has to do with the master class, and I know that you're about to start teaching a new master class soon. So
Mhm.
this is really, I think this is such a fun just like showing the archetypes of our designs. Because for me, and I feel like I'm having a similar conversation twice in the same day, because I also talked about this earlier today. But for me, like I get connected through people through my network a lot. That's my culture of network, line four. I mean, you also you're 2-4, so you have that sort of like networking thing. But then you're a manifestor and I'm a mani gen. So I'm like, woohoo, hello. And you're like, what? So we got connected to tell the story, and then I'll let you share the parts too. From my experience, my first experience knowing of Katie, is I did a little mastermind thing to start my business in 2020. And I actually take this is like a total aside, but I take the moment of me paying for that little mini mind as like the birth of my business, because I enrolled in it. And that's like the birth chart of my business, because I enrolled in it to take the coaching business seriously. Before, I was like sort of doing like freelance, like graphic design or whatever. And that was like, nope, I'm doing a coaching business. I'm going online. I'm going to like talk about things. And then that led me to do human design just a few months later. But anyway, joined that. And then, and it was great. I did 2 rounds of it. It was like over summer. And then they did this like big upsell into this big mastermind. And the person who was doing my sales call heard that I was doing human design, and she was like, oh, I have this friend named Katie. She just launched her HD school. It's the first, I don't know if it was the first, it was like summer of 2020. So yeah.
Yeah,
So it was
first
like
time.
love that. So it was like she just launched her HD school, and she had an amazing launch. Let me connect you guys. She didn't ask me, she didn't ask you. She just like put us in an Insta group chat. So yeah, wait. So tell me, I know I've heard it before, but tell us your experience of that.
My experience was, who is this bitch? Because it's like, so my friend Sam, I knew her from this co-working place in Toronto. And then all of a sudden it's just like, oh, like here's this like Maria, like she wants to start a human design business. And like I had literally just launched HD school. I hadn't created it yet, but I launched it and I was like, okay, 5 people sign up. It'll be like good enough for me to actually create it. And 23 people signed up. So it was like beyond my wildest dreams. It was so amazing. I was like, thank God I followed this urge.
Yes.
I now have like 400 students, which is wild and
I
like
was
so
going to
fun.
talk about that. Yes. So
Anyways,
amazing.
so they put us, or Sam, I guess, created this like group chat on Instagram with us. And I was just like, who is this bitch? Like, I don't care. And one thing you should know about me is like, I just keep my eyes in my own lane. I don't follow other human design people. I don't see what other human design people do. If I do, it's probably someone that I know personally. And like, there's also a really good chance that they're muted, even if I do follow them, because I don't want to know. I don't care what anyone else is doing. It's irrelevant to me. And especially at that point in my business, I was really struggling of like, oh, I have this great, idea or urge, whatever it was at the time, of like creating this content. And then I would see that like someone else posted something similar. And it's like, oh my God, they're going to think I'm copying them. And it was just like, if you started a business, it's a game, it's a whole
Yeah.
thing. And it's like biggest personal development thing you're ever going to go through. And so I was like, oh my God, like here's this other girl and she's just going to copy me. She's going to steal stuff or her stuff, like her graphics, like her design was so good. And I was like, oh no, she's like going to be better than me. And like, get away from me. I don't want to know you. I also joke that manifestors have like a resting bitch aura. So I feel like some of that was coming through of just like, get away from me.
Yes. Well, I know we talk about this a lot because I am always making friends with people out in the wild, and you're like, no one ever approaches me except like crazy people or something like that. Yeah.
Not even crazy people, just like no one approaches me because I'm just like, I have these
no one.
get away. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
By the way, if you ever do see me in the wild, come say hi. I'm nice. I just give off
yes
energy. I'm not mean mostly.
I mean, it's the manifestor thing, like that's whatever. It is what it is. We love the resting bitch aura. That's so funny. Yes, she's very nice. Go say hi to her. But yeah, I was just like, oh, cool. Like, hi. I don't know, just very like, I can be very golden retriever.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then yes, but I did think what you were doing was super cool. I loved your handle always. I've always loved Sort of Spiritual. I think it's so clever. I know you tell that story. Do you tell that story in your podcast? Can I direct people to some place where you tell that story, or do you want to tell the story now? I don't know how you came up with that name.
Oh, I don't know. I just came up with it. I
was just told to do it.
Yeah, no, that's not entirely true. It was in Toronto at some event, some podcast event, and there was someone there that had a podcast, and I think it was called Mindful Mostly. And I was like, oh, I like that because it's like this whole idea of like, yeah, like this is what I'm about in terms of mindfulness and whatever, but like I'm not perfect,
Yeah.
And so I actually think it's so funny because I was not a spiritual person at all, like at all growing up or like in university. And I actually like, I think I was talking to you about this recently, maybe, but how it's like I got back into spirituality because my ex-husband's Muslim. And so I started learning about Islam because it's like I needed to know about Islam if I'm going to be married to somebody who's in this religion, especially because at that time people were saying a lot of dumb shit about Islam. And so I started learning about that.
Continue to say dumb shit about Islam. But yes.
But it was like far worse, 15 years ago. And yeah, so I started learning about it. And so it's like, I wouldn't have identified as a spiritual person at all. Mind you, here I am with like my Pisces North Node,
Yeah.
like perhaps spirituality is my path. But again, it was this like, I liked the idea of it taking it lightly. And so the name that I actually wanted to go with at first, the first name that came in was Spiritually Curious. And because it's like, yeah, I'm curious about it. I'm into it, but I'm not like full blown so serious. Like,
yeah,
I don't know. Like I just have a lighter approach to it, I think, even though it's like, I think, one of my roommates in Bali was like, girl, you need to update your handle. You are not sort of spiritual, like some of the things you talk about.
Yes.
Yeah, so Spiritually Curious, when I first looked at it, the domain was available, the handle was available. And within like, I don't know, a week, 2 weeks, whatever it was, when I went back to actually buy it, someone else took it. And so I was like, oh, damn. And it's like, I don't really know. And I hate coming up with names for things. I feel like you're so great with it and you have so much fun with it. And it's like my worst nightmare. If I don't receive the name, I'm just like, this is and so yeah, then it just kind of like dropped in one day of like, what about Sort of Spiritual? And I was like, ooh, yeah, this sounds fun. Cause I feel like I don't know. I just liked it. What I love the most about it now is when people find out the name of my business, so many people are like, oh my God, I love the name, or like, it made me laugh. So it's like, I just love like the little giggles that people get from my business name. I think it's so fun.
Yes. Well, that definitely drew me in. 100%. That's so funny. To your point of like, if you don't receive it, then like it doesn't feel good. It's like that's just very like just you radically in your alignment as a manifestor. Like, yeah. But I was just like, this is so cool. Like this person's doing this. And it was you had like a hugely successful launch. She was like, she just had a 25K launch. And I was like, oh my God, people are doing this with like it was very expansive to me. You continue to be an expander for me. And then we didn't chat or anything, but then like the next summer, this is I always just think about this during this time, but I was in Arizona the summer of 2021. I had just moved back from Germany after the ending of my relationship, and was like driving around the US and just I put my laptop, I remember this so perfectly. I put my laptop on like the dresser as like a standing desk for your incarnation cross masterclass at that time. And it was, I think that's when I was like getting a lot more into the gene keys and I wanted to learn. Cause I'm like, why was I so excited about incarnation crosses? I couldn't remember, but it might have been because of like a gene keys thing. And then we just started chatting. I don't even know how. Like it was, yeah.
You showed up in that masterclass, and this is like a hot tip for people as well. You showed up in that masterclass and you were like really present. You were making lots of comments and you were asking really good questions, but in a way, like you legitimately cared and not like you were trying to be seen of like, hey, I'm on this masterclass, but I'm really trying to steal clients back to my own platform kind of thing. It's like you were just genuinely interacting and you were genuinely there. And then I was like, oh, okay, this person's actually smart and kind of cool, just kind of, I'm kidding. Um,
And not a dumb bitch.
not a dumb bitch, as it turns out.
Yeah.
And,
So
and
funny.
yeah. And so it was like, oh, okay. And so then we like from there started kind of chatting a little bit more in the DMs on Instagram and like commenting on each other's stories because I was no longer having my like bitch wall up of like, I hate you. And I think because of that, we started interacting more. And then
Yeah.
I don't know, eventually one day we took our relationship to the next level and went to Voxer,
I'm dying.
which is like a
I
walkie-talkie note app if you guys don't know about Voxer. Um,
It's great. And it's so
and
nice because, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I was gonna say we've been like talking every day ever since.
Literally. I mean, it's so nice because like when someone is I'm like not gonna scroll to anything other than just voice notes. When someone's talking, you can hear them talking at the same time. It's a walkie-talkie. So Katie and I have never lived in the same place. So we didn't meet in person until like basically a year later, almost a year later, in March of 2022, when you were in Mexico and then I went to Mexico. And that's where we had our life success moment. These little candles. If you're on the YouTube, you can see the little candle that I made. But Katie and I met. We had just had one night, one day. We went to the beach and just were like, that was a really nice day and a really nice beach. That was
So beautiful. That beach. Yeah, I was in Cancun. So
fantastic.
nice.
Yeah, it was Cancun, and it was like we walked down to like the bay where it was protected, so there was like basically no waves, so it was just like a little
Wow.
bathtub. Yeah, just float. It was fantastic, and you know, talked for hours as usual, as is our whole MO. I feel we're just talking 24/7, which is so much fun. Just two defined motorized throats, just going and going and going. It's so great. And then we went to this restaurant, great restaurant. It's called Funky Geisha. You guys should go. It's a lot of fun. It's one of the like party restaurants in Cancun. And they asked us if we were celebrating anything. And I was like, I don't know. I mean, I was about to move to Boston. I was like, our business is going really great. Like we just met in person for the first time. We've been friends for like almost a year. Like, I don't know, things are good. And so when they brought out the dessert where they would normally write like happy anniversary or like happy birthday, they just wrote life success. It's just
I
like
love it.
it was so cute. So now we've indoctrinated our life success cult. I made some candles recently and brought Katie one. It's a candle that's burning in the background of this video. If you
So that's always like our like cheers when we're out. Like, what are you
yeah,
celebrating? Life success.
life success, just doing life. So yeah, and I think it's been so I feel that story is funny, because it just shows that like, I don't know, just me being like, yeah, sure, I'll respond to this, like whatever, and not actually, not us connecting until I don't know. This feels really weird. I was gonna say until your aura opens. feel so sexual. That's not what I mean. But until you decided it, basically is what it feels like, until like you wanted, until you like initiated it. And I was not like expecting it. I don't know, like there was no thought in my brain of like we were supposed, I don't know. I was actually very surprised when we started chatting and getting to know each other more. I was like, oh, this is it was like a pleasant surprise. I was like, wow, I didn't like, what a random. And then we did we did our little HD school and readings on repeat like call. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I told this story and I was like, yeah, it began when Sam connected us. And you were like, oh yeah. Like you didn't even remember until that like live. And that's on Katie's podcast. I'll link it below, an audio from us 3 years ago talking about how we, creating and launching reading businesses from scratch. So I just think it's a lot of fun. And in case anyone was curious, we have a big shared audience. In case you guys were curious as to how we met, that is how we met. Any final thoughts before I ask you my rapid fire questions at the end? Can we wrap this guy up?
No, I feel like we could talk for 5 hours, so we should move on.
I know, we really can. I mean, literally, it's like, you guys, it's like 15-minute voice notes just on the daily, like all of the things.
Personal
Yeah.
podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah,
At
like
the end. Oh yeah, go ahead.
just gonna say when we first we first met in Mexico, and then I can't remember, it was just before I moved to Bali that you came to Toronto. So what year was
Yeah.
that, in 20, I guess?
2022. Yeah, September
Yeah.
2022.
So Maria came to Toronto for like 5 days, 6 days, something like that.
Yeah.
And we literally talked non-stop. Like, no joke. We woke up talking, we fell
Yeah.
asleep. Like, there was not a moment of us not talking on that on that trip. Like, my throat hurt by the time we were done because we just talked for like a week straight.
That's literally what I was gonna say. I was like, my throat fucking hurt because like it was just nonstop and it was so fun. Like you're such a good storyteller. I mean, the Gemini is just everywhere. Gemini is like my fifth house of like dating and fun. So like I fucking love Geminis. And right now is like Gemini, amazing time and astrologically, which is just like so much fun. But I was fucking loving it. I was eating it the fuck up. But yes, our fucking throats hurt. I was like, holy fuck. And it was so funny when I booked that trip because I was like, we've only hung out one time and I'm just here booking like a full like 6-night stay at your apartment.
Like, because it was over a weekend, and then I remember you booked it and you're like, wait, I'm coming for like 6 days, is that okay? And I'm like, yeah, I guess. Like, we'll see how it goes, maybe we'll hate each other, who knows? But here we are. And now where else have you been? You've been to Bali twice to visit me. We met up in Colombia.
Yes.
I came to
Yes.
Boston. Yeah.
Yes, we've been all around the world. Yeah. And this truly, I'll just end with that. It's like, it's been so healing for me because that's like, or like just sweet, I guess, because this is like what like little like Mari wanted, like when she thought about like digital nomad and like having a business or whatever, and like just us now being in Bali a few weeks ago, and me connecting you with one of my other really good friends, Danny, who like you've gotten to connect with further, and then us hanging out with Ollie. It's like just like having this like, I don't know, I call it like gaggle of girls, but just like these gaggle of girls, doing our thing, living very authentic. Danny is like out there doing like her thing super radically authentically. She's such an inspiration to me. I'm obsessed with her. Danny, if you're listening to this, love you so much. Yes, we adore you. So anyway, it's just been so much fun. I couldn't have imagined it with fucking human design and Instagram. I don't know, like that was not in my like realm of possibility. Yeah.
So true. Whenever I tell people we met on Instagram, they're like, what?
No, but it's so real. Yeah. But it's fun because I could talk about this for a while, so I'll just end it with this. But I think about the closest friendships that I've had on Instagram, it has been because somebody has connected us, like it has been because of that. So for you and I, and then like Nikki, who's my VA, but was my really good friend for much longer before then, like Neha connected us, so it's just like a lot of fun to have these sort of connections. So anyway, very forced. But yes, thank you for sharing so generously about human design. I have one question for you. And it's my rapid fire question. I asked you some of them, as we sort of went along, but before we get into what you're creating next and what's sort of happening right now, one of my favorite questions, this is a very Maria, transmission, but what in your chart are you like a cocky asshole about? What are you in your chart where you're like, I fucking love that I have this part of you? And to give the cocky asshole context, it's that story that I was saying before, you like, get your conditioning reflected back to you. But after you decondition, you're like, motherfucker, I have the best chart. This is the fucking best chart ever, because it feels that way to you. So yeah, what are you cocky about in your chart that you have?
See, I feel like we have a different perspective though, because where you feel like cocky about it, I feel kind of guilty because I'm just like, oh, this is like so convenient for me, where
Yeah.
it's like my gate 45 in my conscious sun, like the gate of the queen, basically, like the ruler. I'm across the rulership. And so it's like all about
Keep the
me
crown in
in a
the
way.
background. Yeah.
I love it. My little Indonesian crown. Yeah. And so it's like this whole thing of like, yeah, I'm designed to give, but not ever at my expense. It's like from my overflow and like I'm designed to be taken care of. And like when I'm taken care of, then I have all this to give. And I love that because it's like I love sharing resources with people. Like that's obviously all the information that I share all the time. If
Yeah.
you're part of my people, and it's like it's on my terms. And so I feel like just kind of a bitch about it sometimes. And same with like my hope motivation piece. And like, I just feel like a lot of it, it's like I have like guilt about because it's like, oh, it's just so perfect for me. Like, it's just, I feel like I feel like my design is very self centered in a way where it's
Yeah.
like, it's much about me. It's very much about how I want things, how things are supposed to go, how things work out for me, how I'm feeling. The 1222 is so much of like, am I in the mood or not? The second line is like, do I feel like it? Am I out or am I in? Like, so I wouldn't say I'm like cocky about it, but like the one thing I would probably say that I'm cocky about is my Jupiter in gate 23, because it's just
Yeah.
like I never used to feel that way, but it's like the number one feedback I get from students is that I make human design so easy to understand. And if
Yes.
you don't
Yes.
connect with my chart, you might not feel that way because it's like human design is all about electromagnetics and how we connect with other people. But for the people that I do connect with, it's like that gate just like gets in there and like opens them up to human design in a way that they wouldn't be otherwise. And so it's like that just feels so good to me. And it feels like it just makes everything easy in a way.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, I'm glad that you could find something to be cocky about. I think everyone should be cocky about their charts, and you know this better than anyone. You teach this stuff, so I know you know it. And the guilt transferred motivation is real. I understand that, and it's a very Capricorn stellium, Scorpio stellium way of looking at things. Like that's like my version of it. Not a lot of people resonate with that. I do have a whole podcast episode coming out that I think is going to be titled "Biggest Dick on the Planet" because that is what having a Capricorn stellium and a Scorpio stellium feels like when you think about cocky confidence. It's such a vibe. So anyway, maybe that might not be your transmission, or anyone listening, but it is. I'm glad. And fucking 400 students reflect this back to you, bro. And like I was saying, we have so much of a shared audience. Like I have so many HD school students in readings on repeat, which is so fun, or in the master key or whatever. And they're like, oh yeah, whenever I want to reference anything human design, I go to HD school because it's all so well laid out. It's so and I'm in the program, so I reference human design. So when I need to go somewhere to reference, I will definitely reference HD school. But it's so well organized. It's so well laid out. Everything's like, not bite size in the sense that it's like you're not giving enough information. It's just more that it's like pieced together, pieced apart where it needs to be pieced apart, and organized in the way that it needs to be
Wow.
organized.
That
Yeah.
was just intention when I was creating it. Because when I was learning human design, it's like, bless the teachers I had, and I'm so grateful for them. But it would be like an hour-long call on one channel, but they were only talking about the channel for 3 minutes. And I'm like, I am so hungry for this.
Yeah.
And it's like, I just want to learn what I'm here to learn. I don't want to hear you ramble about things of like how this weekend was and what events coming up and what's going on here and this random tangent about whatever. It's like, I just want to learn what I want to learn, you
Yeah.
know? Um, my housekeeper is here with my laundry.
No, it's perfect. Yeah, no, I hear you. And yours is so easily referenceable. So speaking of that, okay, HD school's opening up soon. I have a random question actually before we talk about it, because HD school only opens up maybe 2-3 times a year. Is that sort of the frequency? Maybe. But that I find, sorry?
Maybe 3 times a year. Depends on my urges.
Right. Well, so that was one of the things I want to talk about that, but like that was one of the things that I was actually so I guess surprised by when I learned more about your business model, because the way that I was taught human design was like, oh, manifestors will do a bunch of different things. But for the most of the time that we've known each other, just primarily had HG school. And I found that to be super interesting because it was like manifestors will do all these like different things or whatever. And so I guess like I've never asked you this necessarily, but now that we're here, how would you like how would you reconcile that for me as something with a very like having that sort of stereotype? How would you shatter that stereotype like from an actually an embodied manifestor?
So I think in a way there's truth to that, because it's like we have urges to do these different things, and like as you know, it's like I'm having these urges to like create art and to write books and whatever. And so in a way I think there's some parts that are really aligned, because as a non-sacral type, I think literally one of the best things that you can possibly do in this world is have an online course because
Yes.
it's and then you launch it and it's like I do continue to add new classes. And so that's where some of the urges I think come out as well, of like the urge to make the incarnation cross library that I'm working on, the urge to create the sort of PHS or like the arrow side where I'm talking about, you know, the 4 transformations and all of that. So it's like other urges have come through, but also I was burnt out. And it's like when I moved to Bali a year and a half ago, I entered into a huge rest cycle. And
Yeah.
creating a school was like such a huge undertaking of work, where it was 4 months of nonstop, like 5, 6 days a week. It was 5 days a week by the end, because I learned my lesson of my, you know, defined will center needing more than one day off a week. But it was just like working so much creating this thing. And then from there, it was like a huge rest period before I could really function again and like launch again and do all that. And so it's like these cycles of launching and resting and recovering and creating these new things. But yeah, like, you know, like I've been in this huge rest cycle for like a year and a half. Like I came to Bali and I'm like, I don't know what I do with my day. I like wake up, I go eat breakfast, I do a yoga class, I don't know, I like drink a coconut while I'm looking at the rice paddies, and all of a sudden it's time for dinner and I go to bed. Like I don't know where the day goes.
Yeah.
And um and so it's like obviously with the online course, it's like I still do calls with my students, and so it's like I engage with them that way and I show up for work that way. But there's been just so much rest. And so even though in some ways I feel pretty embodied as a manifester, I feel like I'm nowhere near my potential of really being in the flow with the urges. Because like even
Mm,
something, you know, I've been talking about recently is like I have a backlog of urges where it's like creating this like separate arrows school, which you get as a bonus in HT school if you're joining now. And the incarnation cross library. Like, do you guys know how many incarnation crosses there are? Like that's a lot of work to do. And so it's
yeah.
like I have these urges because it's like in some ways I feel like I'm here to translate the human design system, you know, and to make it easy to understand. Like I don't know if you guys have ever tried to read the 1,400 page document of the incarnation crosses by profile that Ra has created. So much of it is nonsense, with the most respect possible. So much of it is nonsense. Like
Yes.
in the sense that it's random tangents and stuff that he goes on. And so it's like when I spend all this time doing all this research on this and synthesizing all of this, like that singular urge has been ongoing for like 2 years at this point, you know,
Right.
and it's like I'm still in the process of it. And perhaps it would be better to get somebody else to help me to like finish this out, but it's like that's just not what it is. Like it has to come through me. And
Yeah.
so in a way I still feel like there are these backlog of urges, and I'm so excited to get to the other side of this where it's like I can operate more really in the flow of the cycle of like the urge, the creation, the rest, because it's still been a bit jumbled. And also like permission slip that you don't have to get your human design perfect either. It's like I'm 7 years in and I'm still almost 7 years in, you know, and it's like I'm still figuring out how to optimally use these things. But I also just think there's the being fully aligned with your design in terms of like following these urges, but then there's things that are just smart, you know? And so it's like for me, if I was to just create HG school and how much work that was, if I just launched it once, that would be bananas, you
Yeah.
know? Like that would be bananas.
Yes.
Like, and not that I really like to talk about money so much, but like my first launch, like I said, it was like $25,000. I've sold over $1 million at this point. And can you
Yes.
imagine like that one urge creating $25,000 versus $1 million by just repeating what I've already done? And yes, I've added more value. And yes, I show up for a couple of live calls a month, but it's like that's also just being smart in terms of like giving me a foundation of support so I can execute these other urges. Because it's like if
Yeah.
every time I had an urge, I had to figure out how to support myself as that urge is being executed, that's so freaking stressful, you know?
Yes. No, 100%. But I think also to your point, you get urges to relaunch it, like as well, you know? Yeah, it's not that it's like you just move on to the next thing, but that was sort of like the stereotype that was like, they're just gonna move on and like never finish it or whatever. And
There's some
yeah,
truth to that. You
yeah,
know, there's some truth to that, like of starting things and not finishing them and like getting an urge and not seeing it through. And it's challenging. And that's like, again, especially with the emotional authority piece, because most manifestors are emotional authority just because 50% of people are. And so manifestors are more likely to have that as an authority. And I think that's part of the problem is like if you take action on that urge too quickly, then you end up with all of these like started urges that you don't have the energy to finish because they weren't actually in alignment for you to start. And so I
yeah,
feel like now that I'm getting through this like backlog of urges, I'm really, really wary of starting anything right now. And it's like you knew I was going to do a retreat in October and I was so close to booking the Airbnb to host the retreat in Bali. And then I was like, you know what? No, I can't start any new urges right now. I just like refuse to. I need to get this other stuff sorted out first. Yeah.
yes, yes. So good. Thank you for clarifying that. And that leads us perfectly into what's happening right now, which is HG school's opening up again. I'm a freaking HG school student. I love it. It's a fantastic course, and your students are constantly reflecting back to me how amazing it is. Tell us about this current, not my dog just, making some crazy noise in the background. Tell us about this current uh opening of HD school. What's happening?
Oh, I just love it so much. Yeah, so this current launch, so like I said, in terms of the urges, we have some really lovely bonuses for people who are joining right now because the arrows, I think is what I'm calling it. The arrows class, the arrows school. Again, I'm still working on the name for that. I was calling it PHS school, but it's more than PHS, which is the primary health system side. But it's like your environment, your perspective, your motivation, your which one did I miss? Your digestion or your diet, your cognition, the trajectories, the arrows, all of these things. So I've created a whole other course on that. I'm still adding a couple more classes, finishing that up, but that's like a probably going to be around $1,000 when I sell it. And so that's something that's just going to be included in HG school when you're joining, which is a nice little bonus. Same
Yeah,
thing with the Incarnation Cross library because I haven't released it yet. I'm still working on that. Um, that is something that you're going to get included. And that's probably also going to be around $1,000 when it's all said and done. Because like I said, there's a lot of incarnation crosses
yep,
and learning them yourself is challenging. So it's like a really nice bonus to have when you're doing readings or when you're working with people to just have them pre-interpreted for you.
yes.
And then this is going to be the last time I'm offering it at this price as well. So it's over, we're almost at the 4-year anniversary of HD school, which I can't believe, but I just added so much to it over the years. And I'm just realizing that like the price that it is at currently, which is $3,333, is not really reflecting the value that's in there anymore. And so this is your last chance to get it at this price if it's something that you feel called to join. And this also might be, I'm unsure because again, the urges, this might be the last time that I'm doing live calls as well. I'm unsure about that because that's the challenge with launching your business with urges. It's just like seeing where things are at. And so the next time I launch, I'm
Totally.
not sure what's all going to be included with it. Things are changing for me, but this time you will for sure get live calls. And one of the things that I've added in the last round as well that I'm going to continue, in addition to the Q&A calls, is that we've been doing these chart chat calls. So it's like you can bring your chart to the call, which you can do in the Q&A calls as well. But this is just like focused on you, where it's like, can you tell me about the gifts of my Jupiter? Or do I have like this issue in my relationships. Do you see anything in my design? Where it's like you just get my eyes on your design. And so it's like a little mini reading for whatever like specific area you want to focus at. And I just love it because I love my students and I love getting to know them and I love getting to know their charts. And it's just like it's so fun.
amazing. And it is like your community is so lit, and they're like chatting all the time. And like, yeah, no, it's a really like to plug into the HD school community is also like a massive value. First of all, let's like so HD school from my understanding, you tell me more, but the primary like core teachings is the 4 levels of understanding human design. So besides all the fucking insane bonuses that you're going to get, by the way, I've seen the arrows slides. They're insane. We were looking over them several times in Bali and I was like, these are fucking amazing and like crazy good. So like you definitely will not, there's nobody teaching it as simply and as cohesively as you are, which I'm excited about as a person who likes to play with this in the world. So selfishly, I'm excited for it. But beyond all those amazing bonuses, you get all the types, all the strategies, all the centers, all the channels. What else? All the gates. What else is included already in
The
HD School? The profiles.
circuitry, the profiles, the
Yeah,
line. One of the other things I've added over the years, probably in the past year, I would say I've added these, is classes on what I call themes in human design. And these are kind of like the cheat codes for being able to read charts quickly. Because when you understand the themes of like, let's say like wanting to go in depth with something, like that's a line 1 theme. That's a gate 48 theme. That's a potentially undefined ajna theme. It's like there's themes that show up
yeah,
in these different areas. And so it's like when you look at that, or when you look at I don't know, people pleaser themes, it's like, okay, you have an undefined emotional solar plexus, you have an undefined will center, maybe an undefined G center, maybe you have the gate 29, maybe you have the gate 50 or the gate 27. And so it's like understanding these themes so that way when you're looking at a chart, you're like, oh, you have 5 of those people pleaser things. That's probably going to be a big problem for you, or it's like, oh, wow, you have all of this leadership energy, or it's like, oh my goodness, you're like so individual. You're really here to be like unique. And like, I really love the permission slips to highly individual people because it's like, just please be weird. You're so weird and we need it. Like, be weird. Please. Oh my God. You know,
literally.
the
Yes.
classes on the themes, anyways, tangent, I just love because it's like that's how I really learned to see human design. And when you understand the themes, that's when you can look at a chart and be like, I know who you are. Like, I
Yeah.
see this, or I see these 2 conflicting themes, where it's like you have this really big strength, but you also have this big challenge that's kind of going to get in the way of this. And it's like that's where I think the mastery of reading charts really comes from, is like when you look at it and you can see the themes. And so also, I'm always making new classes on this theme. So it's like if you join and you're like, I wonder where this lives in design and I don't have a class on it, just tell me and I'll make one. So if something comes up and you're like, I don't understand where this energy is, we'll find it.
I love it. I love it. It's seriously such an insane program. I know that you're proud of yourself, but just letting you know, you should be even prouder of yourself because it's a fucking crazy program. Over 400 students in the 4 years that you've been in it, which is amazing. And as you guys are listening, this is one of the last times to get all this crazy stuff. So like possibly last time of live calls, definitely last time of price. Yeah, definitely. Or still, okay, definitely last time of price. Yeah, last time, which is so fun. Last time that we did a little co-launch together was also the last time of a price. So yeah, so up leveling on the price is always good because the program is so insane. I mean, there's also a huge library of readings that you've done for students. So it's like
100 readings that are in the library. And I think those are great. Like my students tell me they often just have them playing in the background to kind of like absorb the information. But I also have all of those readings categorized in a spreadsheet. So if you're like, have you done a reading for someone with like the 59-6 channel? Have you done a reading for someone with a cross of penetration? Like, have you done these things? Because then I know I'm pulling from your chart right now. Because you just search it and find that it's like, oh, I've done a
yes.
reading for something like this, and listen, maybe I've talked about it in the reading, maybe I haven't. I'm not going to touch on every single thing in every single reading, but they're all categorized really well. And it's just like one of those ways that you can help yourself to learn the synthesis and to absorb this stuff and to absorb the themes that I'm talking about as well.
Yeah, dude, insane. So yeah, HD school is definitely for you if you're like wanting. I mean, I just like I'm looking at you and it's like you now, Katie, my friend, like somebody who's been like really like living their design for 7 years, continuously adding to this like massive bank of super pre-digested and like very simple to understand, but not like when I say pre-digested, I don't mean that you're like that it's like you're dumbing it down because you're not. You're like you're just sort of translating it so that it's easy for us to understand. Yeah. Go ahead.
Feel like I ground it in a way because I feel like
Yes.
some way that Raw teaches things is just very like, what are you actually saying?
Yeah.
And I feel like, I don't know, for my gate 23, I'm just going to call it that. It's like it comes in my brain and I have some way of transforming it. So I think I don't lose the depth of it, but I ground it and make it a lot more tangible.
Yes, 100,000%. So yeah, I mean, I all I hear always is just the highest praises for HD School, for all of the people that I know in your program. I love to reference it. It's fantastic. I've seen the slides, you guys, for the upcoming charts or for the upcoming classes on the arrows. They're fucking crazy. It was like fucking mind melting looking at them. They're so good.
Those
They're
slides
gonna
are a lot for the most part. Like that's already done. I just have a few more classes to add. So
amazing, already in there. So yeah, check out HG School in the link below. Can you give us the dates, Katie, before we wrap up,
yeah,
and when
let
it's
me
open
find.
and closed?
Yeah, so it's going to open. The doors are going to open on the 12th, unless you're on the wait list. Then some people are already sneaking in. Um, but June 12th, and the some of the other bonuses we have that I forgot to mention. So I also have a business bundle, like an HG School business bundle that's human design. It talks about sales, it talks about launching, it talks about social media marketing, I think branding. So we have some classes from some different guest experts in the past, and the Incarnation Cross Library, the PHS School, and you get a personal human design reading from one of our readers as well if you join before June 21st. And then the cart is going to officially close, or the doors are going to close on the 26th. And I do have another surprise class that's being added from another guest expert that I'm not going to share right now, but you know who it is. But I'm really excited to add that in. I think it's going to be very exciting just to take you guys even deeper into human design and to learn a different type of reading. It's going to be so good.
Yes.
Yeah, so doors are going to be opening soon, and you have until the 26th to get it, June 26th, at this current price.
Yes, of 2024, by the way, in
2020.
case you're listening to this way in some further June, that is not the June of 2024. I always watch like YouTube videos and they're like, it's coming out next week. And I'm like, what fucking year, month, and day is it? Yeah, like what the fuck is happening? So June 12th, yes, 2024 is when it opens. It closes June 26th, 2024, you guys. Super exciting. Katie, thank you so much. This was so fun. We have other podcast ideas, but mostly this has just been so great to like get you, yeah, I don't know, just to share your human design journey on my podcast. I'm excited to introduce my folks to you. So thanks for coming on and sharing so generously. Anything else before we end this party?
Oh, no, thanks for the invite. This has been so fun. It's like fun to reflect back on things that I kind of like I'm not so present to, you know? So loved it.
Yay, amazing. All right, well, thank you so much, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye. That was so fun. I am so glad that you got to join us for a conversation. I fully plan on having Katie on for many more conversations. She's such a genius, and we have so many things to talk about. As you heard on there, we are sending each other 15-minute voice notes on the regular. So there's many Katie and Mari things to talk about. And as you know as well, her program HD School is open right now this month live. So June 2024 until the end of the month. So June 30th. It's Gemini season. It was Katie's birthday just now. It's just such a vibe. The Gemini vibes are just vibing. And this is actually the very last time that you're going to be able to get this program at the current price. If you're seriously considering going into formal education for the human design system and really mastering it, whether just for yourself or wanting to create a whole business out of it. So like a human design reading business, this is an amazing time to invest. Again, not only because this is the last time that it's going to be at this price. I mean, besides it being like an amazing program, which I'll talk about in a second, but it is also the last time you get it at this investment, which is crazy because there's so many things in there. It's already way more than the value, or like the value is way higher than the current investment. There are also some really amazing bonuses available that actually end on June 21st. So there's actually a little bit of limited time with those. So 3 bonuses are available until June 21st. Number 1, the HD business class bundle. So this is all about sales, launching, branding, social media, marketing, and essentially creating a human design business in this amazing masterclass series that's being included. You also are going to get the Incarnation Cross library, which is coming soon. There are so many incarnation crosses. Our incarnation crosses are purpose. They're made up to say it simply, from the human design system. They're made up of the four gates of our conscious sun and earth, and then our unconscious sun and earth. And the combination of those tells us so much about the purpose that we're here to fulfill. And there are not very many good references about the incarnation crosses on the internet. And if anyone's going to make a really, really masterful one, it's going to be Katie. She really knows what she's talking about. And you're also going to get a personal reading with one of Katie's human design readers that have been approved, so you can really understand that for yourself. You're going to get so much other stuff out of that as well. Her arrows classes are coming. I have seen those slides like I was talking about. They are absolutely insane. There were many days in Bali just now that would just go and get a cacao and sort of look at the slides together, and they're like, I am so excited. I am very excited as a student of this program to be receiving those classes. And you're going to get so many other things in that program. I have a lot of students in my programs that are also students of Katie and in HD school, and they often talk so highly about what an amazing program it is, and that it's a place that they're often going back and referencing. It's because it's so well organized. Everything is so perfectly set up for your success when it comes to understanding what is quite an in-depth system. And from what I know out there, this is the most extensive, masterful, and yet simple human design video library that there is out there. It's a fantastic course. You get access not only to this amazing program, which is really going to teach you and really break down for you what can be kind of a difficult system, but put it in a really simple way, because as you heard, that's one of Katie's amazing gifts. You also plug into a community of like 400 other, plus human design students, which is just incredible. And there's some really amazing people in there. Yeah, it's just an amazing community. It's popping off all the time. Like I was saying, there's lots of discussions in there. And I as a huge community person, I really, really highly value that. And I've gotten so much goodness and so much magic out of being part of really amazing communities, and this is definitely one of them. So check out the link below to join, and if you actually join through my link, send me an email at maria@mariahenning.com with the subject line, I just joined HD school, or something like that, HD school June 2024, whatever you want, and send me a screenshot of your confirmation that you joined the program, and I will give you 1 month access to the Astrodex, which is my reading library. So this is a whole video library of readings that I've done. So if you are going into HD school because you want to learn how to do readings, not only are you going to get taught by Katie how to understand human design to a very in-depth level, you're also going to get Katie's insane reading library, and you're going to get 1 month access to my reading library, so you can see how I do all my readings as well. And you'll also get entered into a giveaway where you can actually win a reading with me. So with all that being said, take a look at the HT School enrollment page on the link below. If you choose to sign up, let me know. Send me an email at maria@mariahenning.com, sending me a screenshot of your confirmation that you just joined, and I will give you a little gift and enter you into a giveaway. And with all that being said, I will catch you next time on the Shortcuts to Mastery podcast, and let us know what else you'd like to see. All right, see you next time. All right, my friend, thanks for joining me on another ride aboard the Shortcuts to Mastery spaceship. You can get started on your human design and Gene Keys journey with me today for free by going to mariahenning.com/chart, which is linked below. If you're a visuals lover as well as an audiophile, then definitely join the party over on Instagram at @ByMariaHenning for lots of fun and beautiful educational content, and to tag me in the stories with the episodes you listen to so I can repost you. And of course, if you're here, you know it totally rocks for podcasts to receive great ratings, so if you're feeling warm and fuzzy and want to share, I'd be eternally grateful. I can't wait to connect again. Thanks for being here, and until next time, here's to everything going easier, better, and faster than expected.